All right, so here's what's up with Muhammad Ali. You'd think that every boxer wants to be the greatest, and they all do their best, and then whoever happens to be the best at it gets to say they did it. And that must be what happened with Muhammad Ali. But no, Muhammad Ali was talking about being the greatest before he beat everybody. He was talking about being the greatest right from the beginning. It was an essential part of his strategy. In fact, he discovered this muse, and through this muse, developed his own style, transformed it a few times, revolutionized boxing, and successfully became the greatest of all time, but also successfully called it, right? It's a macro, big version of the little things he would do in one fight. He would call which round he'd beat the opponent. He'd call details about how it would go down. People have copied that, like McGregor, Conor McGregor, the Irish MMA fighter, will do that. And Muhammad Ali explained that other fighters they throw punches to try to hurt. Tyson really leaned in on that, Mike Tyson. And Muhammad Ali said, but that's not how I wanted to do it. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I just wanted to be the greatest. I just wanted to win on points. I'd be all about grace and speed and class and style. I'll just be beautiful and win on points. I didn't want to hurt anybody. And he came, from a middle class background with attentive parents. And, he didn't have something to prove exactly. He was a, good looking, tall, strong, capable, competent, verbally excellent guy growing up his whole life. I mean, he had nothing to prove. He just took it even farther because he wanted to, not because he had to. But he gets into the fighting right in the beginning, right? And he sees these people trying to hurt each other. It's not really his style. Now you can imagine a kid like him being even self-conscious about it. Like these guys are the tough guys. I'm just here playing around. It's really a sport to me. But he finds a twist in it. He's like, wait a second. I don't want to let them hurt me, right? And he would have a look of fear on his face, even when he was the world champion, because he had to be really like exposed, almost like a raw nerve, in order to be so fast and responsive to his opponent. And that meant he had to have fear. Both Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson talked about making fear into a weapon, a tool. And yeah, it's what gave them both their connection to the root and to their excellent legs. Tyson could sort of like spring his whole body forward, right, and hit him. And Muhammad Ali was, of course, more of an airbender. Um, yeah, I guess Tyson would be more like fire. Yeah. And Tyson didn't try to take Ali's crown, at least not directly, maybe not at all. But when he got up there, he said, I'm the greatest of my era. I'm the most vicious ever. I'm Jack Dempsey. He didn't mention Ali. I'm the most vicious of all time. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. I'll eat your children. Praise Allah. I mean, he was really all about that thing. He was not Ali. He couldn't try to beat Ali at his game, obviously. That's the thing you got to think about with Tyson is, man, oh man, oh man, Tyson, you got to see Cuz D'Amato in him and with him because a canny old man taught that kid how to think, how to do narratives, how to do stories, how to do characters. Tyson said later he was putting on a bit of a show with some of that viciousness. 100% mean it. But he had to be the opposite of Ali in some sense. And you could say it worked, right? Many people rank him as number two behind Ali. And certainly in terms of narrative, story, cultural significance, people are probably going to care more about Mike Tyson than, I don't know, Rocky Marciano, although, there's the movies Rocky. But Muhammad Ali didn't want to hurt anybody. And his whole style flows out of this. his whole greatness, and in fact, his whole thing about talking about his greatness came out of it because he didn't want to win on hurting people. He had to win in every other way. Every other way. He had to get creative about how to win because he was really just giving up in a certain sense. He was basically just going to say, "Yep, every fight my opponent is the tougher guy or the more vicious guy. Just I lose. Done. Okay, now how can I win on every other point psychologically as well?" So how does he do it? Okay, first, again, he just gives up basically on protecting his body. I mean, sure, he'll take power out of punches and put up his guard and prepare and flex his muscles, but he's basically just lets his opponent hit his body whenever he wants. That's like 4/5 of your targets in boxing. The only thing he protects is his face. Why? The face is the only thing you cannot lie about letting your opponent like hit on purpose. There's a lot of times when Muhammad Ali sort of like, yeah, go for the body. He fought, what was it, Chuvalo, and let him hit him 10 times in a row on the body while talking at him, telling him to hit higher, playing his psychological games, taking away his power with the body hold. I almost wonder if he had electrical, sort of trying to drain the energy from the opponent, always holding on to him like he would do, trying to convince them to resist it and feed their energy to him almost. Who knows? But he decides the one thing he's got to protect is his face, and maybe that's a little bit because he's also scared. But then he goes all the way in on protecting it, right? He's like, I can take some body shots because then I'll just come back at his face, right? He basically never goes for his opponent's body either. He gives up 4/5 of his targets. But you can't deny that there's a certain psychological significance to the hit to the face. You know, it says, I'm greater than you. And when you see Muhammad Ali pantomime boxing, as he'll do so readily and easily, is he gets up into these stances and he does this in fights too. It's like, you have no power here. He's like, I don't want any power. Yeah, the famous light flicking jab of the champion. And it's like, he's not even trying to hit hard, although the light flick does actually hit harder than you think. Bruce Lee said, a Western punch hits like an iron bar. But an Eastern or a Chinese punch, it hits like a ball and chain. It goes wow. It hurts inside, which is my explanation for Muhammad Ali's famous phantom punch when he beat Sonny Liston in their rematch in that famous, because it didn't look like he hit him that hard, but maybe it was electric in some sense. Because this was a thing that they would point out about Muhammad Ali's knockouts in general. It's that he wasn't actually hitting that hard. He would tend to knock people out with flurries, his famous flurries. I'll get to that later. But he wouldn't actually hit necessarily that hard, relatively speaking. But his opponents would crumple instead of get knocked back. Like you can tell that he's not hitting that hard because for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and he hits them and they don't move back that much. They just crumple straight down. And like they stay down just long enough for the 10 count, and then they're back up and they're like, fine. But it's over. I mean, this is something about the fight with George Foreman. I hate that George Foreman has to tiptoe around this because it's to be, if we're being fair to him, that was totally a fast count. Totally was. Like, what? That's the fastest count I've ever seen. And he was up. He was fine. Oh my goodness. Ali knocked him down for like 7 seconds. That's it. And he was fine. And it took him 6 punches to do it. And like 8 rounds. And he was tired. And he said, the punch I took George down with wouldn't have put him down in the first round. He was just tired. And he was barely down. He was only down for 7 seconds. And oh my goodness, you have no idea the immensity of the narrative collapse. George Foreman was unstoppable. He had at least 3-1 odds to beat Ali, and then everybody just saw that he was going on and on. He clearly would have been the greatest of all time for so long. He regained the world champion as the oldest guy ever, 46, after being out for like 24 years. That one little fly in the ointment, Ali. And he didn't even keep him down for 10 seconds. It was like 7. It's like he would have been clearly far and away the greatest of all time. And Ali would have been known as a big mouth second placer. And Foreman probably could have beaten Ali. He just made some mistakes in that fight. That's the thing about Ali is I don't think his greatness was sustainable in the sense that once people copped to his style, I think he would have really struggled. This is why he struggled against Ken Norton, who is not considered one of the best ever. He was really good. I kind of think he should have been considered, but because he was like the perfect counter to Ali. He was like a mongoose to Ali's cobra. And part of it was because he knew he got Ali's game. He wasn't going to fall for these tricks. He wasn't going to get himself tired. If he was there advising George Foreman, George would have won that fight, gone on to be the best champion of all time for decades, practically unbeatable. And whenever Ali would grab Norton, tie him up, try to tire him out, Norton would just go limp. He'd just relax. He's like, I'm not wasting any time on this. Do whatever you want. Hold me as long as you like. Ali would always try to drag it out. And Norton's like, oh, do you not hit to the body? Fine. Here we go. Let's go, man. Right here. He's just like, try and hit my face when I'm only protecting it. It's like, why didn't the other boxers think about this? Ali's not going for my body. Oh. And again, Ali had to beat them psychologically. He wouldn't have been able to. They could have beat him. So many of them could have, but didn't realize it. So here's more about the core of Ali's style, right? So first is he's always going for the face and protecting his face. He can dodge most punches, block a lot more, take a few hits to the face, a bunch to the body, and just focus on hitting his opponent's face. And it's psychological too, because it's not just the fact that he does damage to the opponent and the opponent doesn't damage him. It's that he throws a punch and succeeds, and his opponent throws a punch and fails. It's almost like Ali and his opponent could both hit each other 20 times and do equal damage, or maybe Ali would even take more damage. But if the other guy had to throw 100 punches to do it, and Ali only had to throw 25, what's the psychological impact of that? That's what Ali was so tuned into right from the beginning. And that's why he realized he had to say he was the greatest. Because it's one thing to face the psychological burden of just swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss. And meanwhile, the guy's just hitting you and it doesn't even hurt. But it's just like, he just keeps winning. He keeps winning. All round he wins. And the next round he's just winning. And it's like, you could take this guy for a long time if you played it safe and kept your energy and went for the late knockout when Ali would try to make you think he could keep doing this forever, but he would slow down. Okay, so he created his whole training around being able to put so much more energy into the fight than his opponent because he had to, because he wasn't going to hurt his opponent and he was worried about getting hurt himself. So he had to do the float like a butterfly dance like a bee. Crazy. He refused to train with weights. No weights at all. He said that would slow him down. Well, maybe he was right. So instead, he does push-ups and stuff, and he boxes, and he dances, and he swims, and he does, I think, underwater training, which I think I've been doing training at the pool because I think we should all be doing underwater training, underwater meditating, underwater, like, it's just an automatic boost to so many things. But that's what he was doing. And then he would just run forever and skip rope forever. And then he could just go and go and go and go and go. And you're up there getting tired, and he looks like he'll never get tired. and he's dancing all around you. He's putting in so much more energy than you, but you don't really see that or feel it. It looks so effortless. And he's trying to make you think he can do this forever, but he's got his whole strategy built around making you believe that so that you give up or get demoralized. Because Ali can't do this forever. So here's how he manages the rounds, okay? Genius, just in every way. He understands psychologically the beginning and the ends of the rounds are what count. First 30 seconds, last 30 seconds. The middle 2 minutes don't matter so much. So what does he do? Every round, first 30 seconds, he comes out tons of energy. He really wants to convince the opponent that he can swing and swing and swing and swing, and he's just going to get tired and lose. And this is how he convinces the opponent to slow down, and then Ali can slow down and rest. Because after 30 seconds of not, sometimes he'll fight, but a lot of the time he just lets the opponent swing. And 30 seconds of that in, when Ali's just like, come on, 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 I'm the greatest. That's the thing that I was getting at earlier is when he is talking about being the greatest and has been talking about it, then when you're missing, you're like, it's like he is the greatest. Darn it. It sure looks like, I mean, I keep missing and he keeps striking. Doesn't even matter that it doesn't hurt. He looks like the greatest. He feels like the greatest. The crowd thinks he's the greatest. The first 30 seconds, it makes himself look uh, inexhaustible. Then 2 minutes, he sort of rests. He dances, he bides his time because he wants to be able to put all of his energy into the last 30 seconds. And that's when he would come up with his famous flurries. Last 30 seconds, he's suddenly all over you. Why? Because he's tired. The opponent is tired now. That's what else Ali figured out. He's like, wait a second. If I save my energy for the end of the round, then I'll have a maximum advantage over my opponent because they'll be tired and I'll be relatively fresh. So my normal advantages will be heightened even more. And then because it's the end of the round and I'm doing my famous flurries and the opponent's walking back to rest to brood over how bad that was. And I'm going back to bask in it. So I've got the psychological advantage during the rest. And I got the crowd. And then we come back in for the first 30 seconds and I'm all over you again. You're dreading it. You don't even know it consciously, but subconsciously, every round begins and you're like, here it comes. Now, if you could think and realize what was going on, you could say, look, I just won't punch myself out. He can waste all his energy dancing. I know he's getting tired. I don't care if he pretends otherwise. This is how Ken Norton basically beat him, honestly. Ali basically agreed. Yeah. But yeah, the other thing is Ali would pretend he didn't care that you were hitting his body. And he a little bit didn't, but also it was a psychological game and he couldn't actually keep that up forever. So he would let that one guy hit him again 10 times in a row while talking at him. Hit me harder. Come on. I'm the greatest. Demoralizing, you know? That's another way Ali played the psychological game is, sometimes he really had to bring his absolute very best and he found like 12 ways to do it. And one of the ways that he brought to bear when he had to against people like George Foreman was he invested in advance. When he's facing opponents he knows he can beat, what does he do? He calls around because he can just go easy on him until the round shows up, tire him out, get him ready, and then put it all in on that round. And then when you face a real tough opponent, you can call the round, and it's a psychological blow with some force behind it because this guy's famous for calling this stuff, and you don't know how he does it. And you don't realize that there's like a dozen ways he's cheating. Such airbender style. He's having a great time. Floating like a butterfly, stinging like a bee. And the airbender goes wherever you tell him to go. He's totally down. Just dodge, dodge, dodge. And then he come back. So Muhammad Ali, he's got the timing in the rounds to get maximum narrative things going on. He get the crowd cheering for him. He's always trying to make the opponent feel defeated. He relaxes. The thing is, he'll throw punches that, again, they're so soft they can't even hurt. You'll see him sometimes do these punches that look almost silly. You could make fun of them, actually. If you tried, it would kind of resonate because There's times when he gets into this very forward stance and he's got like no power, but he's sort of just there kind of scoring points. But it looks almost silly. He'll even do these sorts of batting, almost slapping things. You're like, what are you doing? What, that doesn't do any damage. It's like, I know, doesn't have to. In fact, it's precisely because the opponent can tell I'm not trying to hurt him that it has a psychological advantage. This is what I was saying earlier about how he was so ready to start boxing. He would say, "Hey, we're boxing. You know, here we go. We're boxing. There we go." And, and but the way he would say, "Oh, look, we're boxing," and like, look at this. It's like a little cats like pawing at each other, like game you'd play with a kid. And what's the game? The game is who's the greatest, and this little slaps at the face. Say, hey, I'm the greatest. No, you're the greatest. Whoa, 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 come on, come on. Yeah, show me something. Show me something. Come on. And yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way to understand Ali's style. Imagine playing it sort of boxing with little slaps all to the face with like a kid you're just playing with. And the game is, and that's why you're talking to. The game is, come on, I'm the greatest. Gotcha, gotcha. Oh, no, oh, you trying? No way. Come on, show me something. Show me something. And it's just points, right? It's almost primal when you feel into the sort of light teasing aspect of boxing, which is sort of part of it because in no real animal primal fight does boxing make any sense. You'd never fight with just your hands. Like, obviously, you got your feet, you got wrestling. Boxing is very much a sport. And the best boxer of all time was not the most vicious. It was the one who really leaned into the sport like nature of boxing, didn't try to make it into a whole warrior thing, brought fun and speed and grace and class and beauty to the game, and didn't just become the greatest, but said he would become the greatest as part of the strategy to do so, to beat down opponents psychologically. So again, I think I think if you'd gone through and explained Ali's style, several of his opponents could have beaten him. But his style was not to win sort of fairly, it was just to win. And he did it. And he won the narrative game too. And he got more than boxing out of boxing. This is something Mike Tyson says about Ali. And maybe I'll finish with this. Mike Tyson says, you see, when we throw punches, we're throwing combinations like muscle memory. When Ali was throwing those punches, there was no muscle memory. It was all him in there, all conscious. And that's the real magic of boxing and of Muhammad Ali, because on some level, for a lot of people, it's like, who even cares who's the best boxer? But as some great athletes do, Muhammad Ali got more than boxing out of boxing. And to be the greatest at the sport, he ended up having to be more conscious than his opponent. And even those skeptical of sports would surely have to acknowledge what a powerful thing it is if a sport can let a man develop his consciousness to some kind of exceptional degree. And the man doesn't just win at the sport, he wins at words, and he wins at life, and he wins at doing good. And Muhammad Ali said he was the champion of the people. And that was part of his power, you know, he was fighting for you and with you, and his victory meant good things would happen in the world. And maybe his opponents, on some level, knew that. It's like, if this guy's the champion, he's going to go around doing good things with it. And if I were the champion, or if other people were the champion, they would just be like, I'm so mean and strong. So, yeah, Mike Tyson admired that about Ali. And I think that strategy was only available to him because he was willing to sacrifice so much to maintain the sort of integrity of his person, his personality, and his style. His consciousness was willing to work with him in a way that it wouldn't have if he was trying to hurt people. As that didn't appeal to the consciousness in him in the way it might have appealed to the animal in him or the animal in Tyson. But Tyson was doing other powerful things. He was doing like shadow work for the whole civilization. He was showing people something that they didn't want to see. He was making them understand. And so his consciousness was with him, especially early on with his rise. All right, this is about Muhammad Ali, and I think that's it. He wins psychologically. He saves his energy. He spends it at the key moments. He makes his opponents tired. He convinces them he's not getting hurt. He convinces them to tire themselves out. Wins on points. But the thing, last point is he's gonna win on points, right? Like first round, he's already loser in the tough guy contest. Congratulations. But round two or three, you're like, he's just obviously gonna win this boxing match unless I knock him out. That's the last and brilliant thing about Ali's strategy is you knew you had to knock this guy out because he was definitely going to win on points. It didn't even matter if he didn't hurt you. He was just going to win 100% unless you could knock him out. So you had to chase him. But the chasing strategy is all part of it. And he tried to make you think it was all part of it. He tried to make you think he wanted you to chase him forever, that he could be light and evasive forever. And so you became desperate to knock him out sooner because you think by the last few rounds you're going to be even more tired. At this point, it's completely hopeless to knock him out, so you're just going to lose on points. So you think, I got to knock him out, the sooner the better. And that's when Ali tricks you, unless you're Ken Norton, who saves his energy. Because if you would just stop chasing him and like relax and catch your breath and stop falling for his game, you could realize, okay, he's going to win on points. I'm not going to struggle against it anymore. I'll protect my face. I'll let him win on points. He's going to hit me more. I'll weather it as best I can. And I will force him to expend energy. I understand his game. He's bluffing. I'm going to make him keep dancing. He said this against George Foreman. He said he spent more energy avoiding George in the first round than George spent chasing him down. Well, that's how you beat him. I mean, he's got plan B and plan C, but that's how you get your chance to beat him. And so they should have conserved the energy, made him dance around for 10, 12 rounds, and then been like, all right, I'm going to try to knock him out in the last few rounds when he's tired and I've got some energy left. That was how people could have responded to Ali's style. But only like Ken Norton figures it out. So that's Ali, the greatest of all time. Not just because he tried and succeeded where others tried and failed, but because he had to talk about being the greatest of all time to be the best boxer he could be. And at that point, he talked himself into a corner. And that's another reason he'd get those fearful eyes when he did to mock his opponents all throughout the fight. Real last point. All throughout the fight, the talking, it's not just to beat the opponent down, it's to keep himself afraid. He's like, come on, get at me. And like in that moment, think about how embarrassing it would be to get hit. So when he says, come on, like right then, he really wakes himself up. So he's using the opponent to scare himself and to keep himself there and conscious and fresh. So he look at his face in those fights. He really looks scared sometimes. But then the opponent swings and he's so responsive because fear is a weapon. So the talking wasn't just to beat down the opponent. It was to adjust his own consciousness. Genius. Absolute genius. That's Muhammad Ali. There we go. That's it. Goodbye.